I'd like to welcome everyone to our second panel of the event today. For everyone that's been with us since 8 a.m., I hope you're enjoying the event so far. This next panel proves to be a great one. We're actually joined by all of the speakers that you've heard over the last couple of hours, and we have quite a few different questions that have come in. So let me jump right to the top. I want to start by introducing the panel. We have Mike McNeil. He's the CEO over at Fleet Device Management. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Matt Brown. He is the founder and CEO over at Wherefour. Welcome,
Thanks.
Matt.
Good to be here.
Adnan Masood. He's PhD and Chief AI Architect. I want to welcome you, Adnan.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And Johanna Hinkle, she is the Director, AI and Automation Solutions over at Toshiba Global Commerce Solutions. Welcome, Johanna.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
And Adnan is with UST. I just wanted to make sure we recognize that. And Trevor is the CISO over at TrustNet. Welcome, Trevor.
Thank you, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
So why don't we just start at the top? Let me see. It looks like the first questions came in for Johanna. And let me just jump in here. The first question comes to us from Megan from Allentown, Pennsylvania, right here in the US. And Johanna, Megan is asking, when your AI product scales from a few pilot stores to thousands, what specific signals tell you that distance from real users is starting to hurt the experience and it's time to step back in?
That's a very good question, and I will not claim to know the exact answer. I think that's part of the trick here. You will hear feedback from your users that I think the first signals are when it really doesn't line up with your data, which seems very counterintuitive. You think data is king. If we have all of the usage metrics, we know exactly how the models are working. How can the data lie? But your users are the ones that are touching it every day. They're feeling it every day, and they're giving you that qualitative feedback that sometimes the data can overlook. So in some ways, it's those biggest gaps with your real power users when you need to go look and question, are you measuring the right thing? That's kind of where we've really found it's that moment you're like, I don't think that's right. But I trust that person, I trust that user, I trust that voice. And that's when you really need to dig in.
Fantastic. Trevor, the next question came in for you. It's right here in the US from Danielle, who is just outside of Dayton, Ohio. And Danielle is asking, for organizations with no clear AI inventory today, what's the most practical first step you recommend to discover where AI is already embedded in systems and vendors?
Great question. I would start with your users. Ask them do some surveys about what tools they're using as a starting point, and then it'd be like an initial guide. Then look at your vendors and also send out surveys to them where they're embedding AI into their products, into their services. Has it been included in any SLAs or contracts with regards to privacy? Maybe the legal team as well would be a team to consult with as well. Yeah, I would start with those two areas.
Sounds like a good foundational first step. Matt, the next question came in for you, and I'm going to spin the globe a little bit and include some of our international attendees. This is from Hugo, who is in Coimbra, Portugal. And Hugo is asking, for manufacturers tempted to let AI handle everything, how do you explain where you deliberately keep humans in the loop so quality, traceability, and audits stay rock solid?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I would say one of the challenges I would say with AI currently is this idea of hallucinating. When you're thinking about traceability and manufacturing a product, don't want to have happen is something hallucinates that some ingredient or component went into your product when you made it. So if you're thinking about using AI in a manufacturing space, probably a good place for humans to play would be in the compliance side. So maybe okay to have AI produce or formulate products, but have humans do a secondary or quality check at every stage of the process, so that you have that human eyes on the stages, and you have the confidence to be able to say, okay, this is exactly what went into my product, and somebody signed off on it, and it's all good.
Adnan, this question came in from a few different attendees, so I'm going to pick one. This one is from Daniel, who is in Galway, Ireland. And Daniel is asking, for leaders designing AI governance, how can your 3-layer model, technical, operational, and regulatory that you spoke about, be turned into a concrete checklist they can execute against this year?
Very specific question. Great question, by the way. So I think it's when you are thinking about the models, especially when it comes to governance, you probably want to think about the loop of what your use case is, what kind of governance framework you are planning to use. So for instance, if it's an NSU, or the EU AI Act or NIST RMF framework, or it's your own internal compliance thing, if you're using ISO 42001, based on that, what controls do you need to put in place, right? That's essentially the mental model you will start with. And now, based on that, you can create checklist. And essentially, a checklist gets created for you based on how your use case applies to that. So if you think about a concrete checklist, that comes out of your mental model of how the risk triage is happening. Some of these use cases will have a high risk, so that checklist will be much longer. And some of this will be actually like, I'm going to summarize a Word document. Like, okay, fine. In that case, your list will be just really small. Does it have PHI, PII data? So there is no one checklist, right? There's no one size fit all. Essentially, will depend on the use case, the regulation you are following, and the controls you have to put in place. I hope that kind of answers your question.
And Michael, if I could just add on to Adnan's answer there as well. Another idea would be to start off and do overall risk assessment, and that risk assessment should guide where the focus should be. So that includes doing things like identifying what the assets are, look at the risk factors associated with each of those different assets, who do they belong to, the nature of the process that's being that's taking place, and that can be a great starting point to focus. And then to kind of add on to what Adnan said, then use your frameworks as the basis for determining what controls should be in place to mitigate the risks associated with that risk assessment.
The next question came in from Mike, and this is from Carlos, who's in just outside of, looks like right in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And Carlos is asking, how do you help admins who grew up on GUI tools get comfortable approving Git-based policy changes without needing to become full-time developers?
Yeah, really good question. I think a lot of people hear Git and they think of that time where they tried to follow a tutorial or they did some Googling and they got these confusing terminal commands and they got their repo all in a tangle and they got merge conflicts somehow they didn't even mean to, right? I think Git's gotten a bad reputation because understandably it's been a low-level tool. And I think there's sometimes a little bit of too much pushing people out and trying to say the only real way to do this is on the command line. But what I've seen, partly I learned this teaching people to code years ago, is that you can take someone who's a barista and you can sit down with them for a couple hours and you can get them competent in the GitHub UI. You can get them to where they can understand that the output from the CI/CD job. I mean, does it say error or not, right? And if it says error, you have to do something. And then it'll usually tell you what to do. At least in Fleet, that's something that we really obsess over, is making that experience meaningful, right? So what I've seen is people go to one of I'll plug it. We have certification workshops. They're free. You can have dinner there, and we do them locally, about 10, 15 people usually. And a lot of folks there learned for the very first time to use Git. We've had people with 30-year-old IT estates, mostly Windows, come in, sit down, figure out how to do the basics in terms of, I can be a participant in this. Like, I can approve things. I can see if they failed, right? I can be like, hey, you should change this. I can see the diff. And from there, it's really just going and using Claude or using another tool to basically get it to create the changes for you. Because even if you don't know how to do the exact YAML structure, that's where I think just the tooling is so important. But yeah, confidence is hard to come by in that world, but it has gotten a lot easier than if you tried Git maybe 10 years ago. GitHub Desktop makes it incredibly easy. And I recommend giving it a go.
So should we be introducing barista experience into all of our job descriptions?
I do a video interview every time. And one of the questions is, hey, have you ever had a customer service position? Because it's always nice to know.
I think your point about confidence is important too, that everyone likes to get comfortable with where they're already an expert. And when it's time to go and learn something new, you just have to get rid of that mystique and the unfamiliarity. Give them that entry point, give them some confidence, and then they can run with it. And it sounds like you're doing a lot of those things with those workshops.
Johanna, the next question actually came in for you, so I'll just jump right in. This is from Carlos, who's in Mobile, Alabama. And let's see here. Carlos, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. I don't know if someone might need to be muted. How do you keep your engineering and innovation teams in regular contact with store associates and managers so feedback reaches you before it's filtered through layers of dashboards and reports?
That's a great question. Definitely a challenge. My team that I lead, we're in the product management space, and that really is our role, that we are that connection between the users and the needs and that true voice of the customer and coming back to our engineers. We absolutely sometimes will have those engineers talk to those users as well. But I think it goes back to the point of never forgetting that your users are important. You can have different layers and roles to communicate, but thing is, just don't trust the dashboards always. We always go out, we speak to our customers, we, in our profession and the retail world as well, there's a lot of people out there, and everyone in our world will go talk to all of those users, whether they want to talk to us or not. We reach out to our customers. And so I think even back to the switching tools and confidence, it's just do it. Just go have those conversations, make sure that you build those relationships with those people and are constantly reaching out. And that will also then make them comfortable with us, so they know, hey, if I have something, I'm not going to hold it within. They know how to reach us and find us and how to give that feedback. And we always have to work very closely, product and technology, engineering, innovation teams. There's always those feedback loops, because those engineers, if they don't understand what we do about the users and about the problems being solved, then they are limited in their ability, right? They're problem solvers. They want to know what the things they're building are actually doing. So it's always really important for us to keep our teams really at the forefront, understanding it and bringing it back every day and talking to those engineers.
Great advice. And I think a lot of the different executives that are at the event today realize that that's important no matter what area of tech you're responsible for. Getting that firsthand user advice and feedback is key. Trevor, the next question came in for you, and it's from Josh, who's in Peoria, Illinois. And Josh is asking, you stressed in your presentation that AI failures start with governance, not tech. What's the very first ownership decision a leadership team should make to change that trajectory?
Johanna, I would like to take the fifth.
I love it.
That's a great question. Looking at governance and what's the first decision point, and It goes back to executive leadership, a lot of education, particularly around the non-deterministic nature of AI. And I think that's something that needs to be really pounded when it comes to educating the C-level. Because your traditional way about thinking of systems where you have a purely deterministic output based on a consistent set of criteria changes the nature of how we need to address risks, and allowing and enabling the C-level and executive level to understand this is the nature of the risks associated with introducing AI into environments. And where the panel had made a comment earlier about the hallucination and that occurs within AI systems, and that's a risk factor that, well, not a lot of executives appreciate because this technology is so new. Clearly, over time, we will see systems become more and more accurate, and there'll be less hallucination and there'll be more accuracy. But most likely, we'll never eliminate that. And that's something that really needs to be factored in when it comes to understanding and appreciating the governance factor.
Makes good sense. Matt,
Just
go ahead.
I wanted to add on top of that people are now getting more comfortable with the latent space. So there's a latent space and there's deterministic space. So I feel like more executives are getting, because of the whole frontier capabilities becoming a mainstream thing, I see. And I think as engineers, as scientists, as leaders, we have to push the envelope a little bit more to bring in those capabilities, because otherwise we lose on a big frontier capability edge. That capability overhang is there for us to really exploit. And I think that alpha really resides between that difference between where the organizations are and where the capability of these models are.
Matt, the next question came in for you from Tyler, who's just outside of Boise, Idaho, here in the US. And Tyler is asking, for a mid-sized food or cosmetics manufacturer such as ourselves, which single process do you suggest they apply your AI-assisted test to and control point approach to first see quick value?
Great process question. So it's going to be unique to every company and every type of product that you make. But I would say in general, the ones that people tend to skip or forget the most. So in other words, get AI to jump in and enforce discipline about the most tedious tests, the ones that require the most reminders or memory to make sure you do them. Computers are great at reminding, repetitive, tedious tasks. So if you start there, that helps your team reduce the tedium of their job, and they might start to see more value, and it kind of replicates. So once I get the AI doing my hardest work, then I start to see I can use this in other places and really start to enjoy the process more. So I would say start there.
Adnan, a question for you. This one from the US. This is from Dustin, who's in, Fresno, California. And Dustin is asking, for teams used to classic software development life cycles, what's the smallest first step you recommend to start operating in an AI development life cycle without overwhelming them or their team?
I guess the smallest one would be to get started with Claude or Codex, depending on the poison of your choice. I feel like we are in an area where our sales folks, our HR folks are building applications. It's completely democratized in that area. It's become that's a great thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a great thing that people are talking to the databases. The natural language has become the way we communicate with machines. So the smallest step you can take, instead of starting to read up on how to do hash plan or how to do create algorithms around this, start just by doing. Just like you do today with your chat GPTs or the So as you build upon that foundation of using Claude Code or using ChatGPT, Codex, instead of ChatGPT Codex, or even like just get Cursor installed and start playing with the free models it provides, it will give you the foundational element of what you need. And from there, you can build upon like, how do I prompt mirror? How do I create a better harness? How do I actually get repeatable results? How do I create agent loops? How do I create evals? But if you start with all of that, that barrier to entry is not there anymore. You can start building applications today. So utilize that opportunity and start, with small Cursor, Codex, or a Claude, and then that will get you, I guess, 90% there. I think that inertia, if you overcome that inertia, then the sky's the limit.
Mike, this next question comes to us from Olivia, who's in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I think this is something that absolutely applies to many of the enterprises in attendance today with many systems in their arsenal. So what Olivia is asking is, you mentioned patching in hours while fleets still patch in months. What combination of live queries and automation do you see actually making that shift a reality in practice?
Yeah. So if you're at an organization that has a patch SLA today, there's likely some corner of machines that you've prioritized to be the most important, right? Like your critical assets or the ones that are in a particular regulated environment. When you go out and look at what you're doing today to achieve that patching goal, or really to even maybe not getting there, maybe it's happening once a month and you want to kind of do it faster as a security initiative. I think the key is kind of first scope where you get the biggest bang for your buck, or where you're already doing the work, so you can immediately start saving some productive hours from humans that are already doing it. It is really easy to start just auto patching kind of everything that you wouldn't have spent time on before, because if you have like 1,000 apps off the shelf, you can just kind of turn it on, and it's great. The other side of that coin is the user experience. So I think that when you're trying to think of how do I go and achieve this in a smart way, I think usually you're thinking about it on a per app basis, and you're thinking about what's the most risk. So I probably don't want to kill the browser, right? First of all, Chrome has a great built-in piece of functionality where you can set a date when the little thing pops up in the top right corner and says ready for update. And there's some managed UI there. You don't need to go build anything. I've also seen people use Umon and go because you can do that for any app, and you can say wait till the user doesn't have it open and then try to do the update. So you can achieve that with scripts. You can use live queries. In this case, if you're going to do automations, they're not really live queries, they're in a policy, but you can write a policy that says, hey, when this process stops running, basically. You can use as well, if you have this is kind of I guess going a little bit further, but if you wanted to sort of see more from a supply chain perspective as well, beyond just vulnerabilities, hey, every time a particular version of an app or any app really gets installed, go ahead and write that to the data lake. So also from a security perspective, you can have in your SOC records of all of the software installs that occurred on the computer. And you can get that from your EDR, depending on your organization. What team owns that can matter too. So I would kind of think about it from first principles, and just actually kind of to Matt's point from before, focus on where you're going to get the most value first, and then apply it there. On the fleet side, one thing we're doing that's kind of unique is 6 times a day we're looking at all of the new patches that came through. We just, I think, had another record patch Tuesday. Not at fleet, I just mean on Earth, right? In terms of just stuff that had to be patched. So one thing you can kind of benefit from there is that everything's basically been vetted at least 6 times a day.
Johanna, next question came in for you from Priya, who's in Rochester, New York. And Priya's asking, when stakeholders in a large retailer all want different AI features, how do you protect the core use cases that made the product successful in the first place from getting diluted?
This is at the core of every product manager's life. I think that, frankly, it's not different than that topic for non-AI use cases. You're always having to understand a wide variety of needs and figure out, you're talking about the biggest bang for the buck. It's the same thing here, that you look at where are the common needs, what is the biggest problem to solve, what is the most urgent problem to solve, and every single time, is that use case, is that problem something that fits into my vision, to what my portfolio is, to what our core space is. And a very important capability to have in there is the ability to redirect. Sometimes you have to not say no, but say, well, this is the solution belongs here, and this is how we solve your other problem in another way. I think when you have a lot of different stakeholders at retailers asking for different things, if you can really get into it, they all still have the same core problem they're trying to solve. So you can always also look at, well, maybe you don't give them exactly what they're asking for because it's not in line, it might dilute the core product. But if you can deeply understand that problem, you can at least look at, well, where can this solution and where can our core use cases or updates still help address that core problem? So I think that's always the way to reroute and make sure you are addressing the need, even when you're not able to do exactly what the ask is.
I'm going to spin the globe and grab a question from another part of the world. So let's see. We have Sophia, who's joining us from Cork, Ireland. And this is for Trevor. Sophia is asking, let me make sure I get this right. For companies already juggling SOC 2, ISO 27001, and PCI, how do you layer AI-specific controls on top without overwhelming your existing compliance program?
Oh, nice question. I think a lot of this comes down to firstly understanding the nature of what's changed overall in the cybersecurity realm with AI. And the fundamentals haven't dramatically changed. Things like access controls and logging and monitoring and governance overall hasn't really changed. Those principles remain the same. What's changed is the scale and speed. Those have dramatically changed. So when it comes to adding on new criteria, you need to have some ability to map controls across different frameworks. And if you're already dealing with things like ISO and SOC 2 and PCI, there are controls that are common across boundaries. Now, not all of the controls are unified, and they're not all in sync. So you may have controls for one particular requirement, say for PCI, that has some strict requirements, and then maybe for a SOC 2, they have less strict requirements. SOC 2s are more based on objectives, whereas PCI, as an example, is based on specific requirements. PCI will actually tell you how many characters at a minimum you have to have in your password. SOC 2 does not say that. It just says you need to have appropriate controls. So when you layer on the AI-specific controls on top of that, you need some ability to map them across those boundaries. That I think, again, the things that have changed are not so much the fundamentals, it's more of the edge cases. And back to my earlier point about the non-deterministic nature of AI, that's an area where a lot of the frameworks don't actually address them directly, particularly the ones that you mentioned. And that's where the real work has to happen in mapping those controls across those boundaries.
Matt, this next question comes for you, and I love this question. I think a lot of individuals in the audience can probably identify with this. This one is from Marcus, who's in Des Moines, Iowa, and I've actually been to Des Moines. Shout out to everyone there. How do you reassure cautious clients that using AI for test definitions and control points won't leak formulas or sensitive specs into external models?
Yeah, this is something we think about, struggle with, and worry about quite a bit. That is a key concern for anybody that makes a product. How do I keep my competitors or just my special knowledge about that product from leaking out of my company. One of the things we're doing in terms of using AI is making sure we're putting guardrails around it wherever we can. Checking terms of service with Gemini or Claude is first step. Second step is putting guardrails in with your prompts and your backend programming to make sure that you're not giving it access to stuff it should not have. And also letting people turn it on or off is important too. So I think there's a rush in software to use it, to build features with it, to give it to users. A lot of that can be really good. I do worry sometimes about, who's really paying attention to what data is going where and who's getting that data and where is it landing. So I think for our customers, we're conscious about giving them choices when it comes to AI. Some people are less concerned about their formulas. Others are more concerned. So I think giving them the option to go traditional manual way or AI way is going to be our approach to that for the near future. This stuff changes fast, however, and I think eventually there will be some, I don't know if it's going to be case law or something, but there will be some situations with AI that are going to start to, I think, define data privacy and protection and who owns what. And I think that is yet to come, unfortunately.
Yeah, really, really tough challenges. And I think that's why everyone's here today. There's so many real questions. So,
Michael, if I could add just one other comment.
Absolutely.
To what Matt said. I think this is an area we see in the cybersecurity realm that's been going on for some time. A lot of organizations have a big tech deficit in terms of not taking data classification seriously. Data classification has been, the red-headed stepchild for a long, long time. No one likes to do it. It's a difficult process, and for companies that haven't done that appropriately, when it comes to the type of controls that Matt's talking about, becomes extremely difficult because you don't really even know where is your sensitive data, what does it look like, and what data is not sensitive. Is this private? Is this confidential? What does that classification even look like? And that's an area, again, that's going to need a lot of attention as they start to roll out more and more tools that have access to extremely sensitive data. Just the identification process itself is a major leap.
As we're coming to the end of this panel, I'm going to send this last question out to Adnan. So this question is from Aaron, who's in Lincoln, Nebraska. And Aaron's asking, in regulated industries like healthcare and finance, how do you balance rapid AI feature delivery with the fairness, transparency, and human alignment checks you described in your talk?
In one word, risk tiering, to what Trevor was talking about earlier. It's like if you tear these things down in this different risk tiers, if you classify them, hopefully you have a good data foundation and you have risk tiering built in there, which means if you are working with a regulated industry, majority of the risk comes from the processes and data. Those are the two major areas. So if your business process you are trying to automate or trying to make it smarter, try to make it better and more efficient, is a low risk process. It doesn't have to be a low impact process, but it's a low risk process. Then you can easily expedite that and go through that much faster, as compared to if there's something which requires like 50 different guardrails to go through and it's a high risk process, then it will take longer because of the human in the loop and essentially just going through the governance process is usually painful, right? The bureaucracy associated with that. So what I have found working with different leaders is that they try to stratify that between different tiers. The risk tiering will help you really expedite the things much faster. Try to still have the ROI associated with that. So it doesn't mean that low risk doesn't mean trivial use cases, because triviality wouldn't get you buy-in from stakeholders. So make sure they are actually value generation use cases and you can streamline them and make them fast track, as long as you don't lose the value. There will be friction when it comes to the governance specific use cases, and that's by design. And for that, you can automate a lot of it. I think that's the shortest answer I can give on this topic.
There you go. Well, as we're wrapping up, Aaron, next month our summit is on governance, risk, and compliance. So that might be a great day to attend. Any which way, I'd like to let everyone know that if you would like to reach out to any of the speakers you've heard on this panel or throughout the event, up at the top of the site, you're going to see a big orange button. Just press that button. We'll get you connected. And Mike, Matt, Adnan, Johanna, Trevor, I'd like to thank everyone for the fantastic presentations today and for taking the time out to answer a few of the questions that we had come in from the audience. And I think that was a great panel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.